Hello, friends. Jim here. Welcome to Science Talk. Want to share with you a little article that appeared in the online publication EOS. Major lakes have suffered major water losses over the past few decades. A new study shows that losses are global in both arid and humid regions and could have significant impact on a quarter of Earth's population. In other words, 2 billion people. Earth lakes are drying up. From 1992 to 2020, more than half of the world's largest lakes, which account for 95% of all the lake water storage on the planet, lost significant amounts of water, according to a recent study in Science. The trend held for both natural lakes and human created reservoirs, and for both dry and wet regions. As a result, roughly one quarter of the human population now lives in a drying lake basin, a situation threatening water supplies, hydroelectric power, recreational opportunities, and more, the study suggested. And not to mention crops. The study attributed the losses primarily to global climate change, which is increasing evaporation. It also identified steadily growing human demand. Well, duh, yes. I was surprised by this drying trend, said Fang Yao, a climate fellow at the University of Virginia and the study's lead author. This has been seen locally in other studies, but we show that this pattern is global. Yao and colleagues obtained their estimates by combining almost 250,000 images from the Landsat satellite missions, altimetry from 9 satellites, and lake level measurements made from the ground. They obtained an average of 6 lake level estimates per year for each of the studied lakes. They then used climate hydrological models to determine changes in both the elevation and the aerial coverage, from which they calculated the volume of the excuse me of the study's 1,972 lakes and reservoirs. Lake levels fluctuate annually and interannually, so you need these 30-year kinds of observations to estimate a trend. Yeah, that obviously reflects seasonal variations. You have a wet time of the year, a dry time of the year, so you have to take that into account. We started with 1992 because that's when Landsat 2 images became available. Okay, makes sense. Before that, global coverage was spotty, but we got really good data. Results are robust as they were able to use multiple data sources to compile the most complete and temporally dense time series of lake water storage. Globally, said Zhao Yang, an assistant professor of earth sciences at Southern Methodist University. Not involved. Dry get drier, and so do the wet. And that's interesting because usually what's been happening is dry regions getting drier, wet regions getting wetter. But now it seems like everywhere is drying up. The researchers examined 1,051 natural lakes, each with a surface area of 100 to 377,000 square kilometers, 921 reservoirs with surface areas of 4 to 67,000 square kilometers across all 7 continents. They found that globally, 53% of the lakes, 64% of the reservoirs studied experienced significant losses. Combined, they lost an average of 21.5 gigatons, 600 cubic kilometers of water per year. The equivalent of all the water consumed in the US in 2015. Let's highlight that. They lost an average of 21.5 gigatons or 600 cubic kilometers of water per year. That is a tremendous amount of water. And we know that warmer atmosphere can hold more water vapor. And what's going on around the planet? We're just seeing these massive precipitation bombs and flooding events. Well, there's the water being returned. Natural lakes lost an average of 26.4 gigatons per year. Reservoirs recorded an annual increase of 4.9 gigatons, the result of 183 new reservoirs impounded during the study period. About a quarter of the lake saw large gains, usually in dam construction hotbeds or in remote, underpopulated regions such as the inner Tibetan Plateau and the Great Plains of North America. The researchers said that just 20 major lakes accounted for 80% of the total water loss, led by the Caspian Sea. That's one next, the next one over from the Black Sea, which is the world's largest inland body of water, which lost half of its volume. But major losses were recorded across the globe, including the U.S., led by substantial declines in California's Salton Sea, Utah's Great Salt Lake. I did a recent video of how the Great Salt Lake is drying up, and then all these toxins, which were in the sediments, now the sediments are drying up, and the wind comes through, it's just blowing all these toxins around, and people being exposed to the toxins. And several lakes, such as Gadi in Afghanistan, which contain 4 times as much water as Lake Mead when the study began, vanished almost completely. Drying trend was prevalent across both arid and humid regions. Previous climate studies have indicated the dry get drier and the wet get wetter. We found that the dry do get drier, but there are losses in wetter areas as well. So everywhere is losing water, getting drier, according to this study. Losses could have major effects. The research identified 3 leading causes of the global decline in lake levels. First is Earth's warming climate, which is significantly increasing both water and air temperatures, producing higher rates of evaporation. Teens model said the global warming was the primary culprit in the disappearance of Lake Galizare. Second is overconsumption, driven by climate change, increasing population, increasing demand. All right, increasing population around lakes and reservoirs, inefficient water management plans. Human activity got most of the blame for the massive water losses in the Great Salt Lake and the Salton Sea. Third is increased sedimentation, especially in reservoirs, whereas natural climate variability plays some role as well. Basically, if the water's not flowing and it's just sitting there and you introduce sedimentation, it's going to be deposited and it's going to build up, and displace the water. Because such a large fraction of the population inhabits desiccating lake basins, continued water loss could have serious consequences, said Yang. This is especially important if those water bodies are used as drinking water sources or sources for agriculture or industry. In addition, declining storage in the reservoirs due to sedimentation can also compromise the designed functions of the reservoir to manage flood and drought. Recreationally, declining water storage and increasing water temperatures, a host of other climate warming induced effects on lakes can all lead to a decline in water quality and damage the ecosystem services lakes provide to us. I just did a video a little while back about the Colorado River system. Lake Powell, Lake Mead, what's going on there. Lower lake levels could exacerbate climate change by reducing the lake's ability to store carbon. Lakes are hotspots for storing carbon like the oceans. But if they warm up, the capacity to store CO2 goes down, right? Gas solubility decreases with increased water temperature. And in some highland regions where we see higher degrees of warming these bodies, we're seeing a big loss in protective ice cover. The ice cover duration gets shorter, so the lakes lose more water, which means they can lose CO2. Gao said he plans to extend the research to include smaller lakes, although they account for a tiny fraction of the planet's surface water, limiting their global significance. Changes in storage can have big local impacts. New satellite missions, such as NASA's Surface Water Ocean Topography, or SWOT, which was launched last December, should help provide more data. So, we're losing a fresh water supply, and we need fresh water. And I just saw another uh, quick story that the grounds are getting so dry, dangerously dry. And what do we see happening? We have basically the planet burning down. You know, Siberia, Hawaii, British Columbia. Right? We have all across Canada, Spain, right? Greece. All these fires because the ground is so dry. And then, especially in the high latitude region, these fires burning through, you're releasing CO2 and methane, right? You're releasing the stored carbon, further exacerbating things, basically positive feedback loops. So we're losing the lakes and the water. The ground's drying up because, you know, the losing the, the warmer air sucks the moisture out of the ground, drying out the ground, making a tinderbox. Climate change is here right now, and it's biting us in the ass big time. So there you have it. You don't have our water supply. Well, I don't care how rich you are, you can't drink money. We all need water, clean water. Until next time.